So for years, you have heard people on television dismiss General Michael Flynn as crazy, a conspiracy nut, as unqualified. He is, of course, none of those things. The opposite is true in every case. And it's possible that's why they took him out.
The American people, they saw through this from the very beginning, because it wasn't about Mike Flynn. It wasn't even about Donald Trump. It was about them. And when the left and the media started to attack the presidency of the United States of America, the American people saw that, hey, this is an attack on us.
Yes.
And thank God for me, because, and for my family and I, because the American people actually came to our aid. So in a funny way, the more quiet I was, because I just made the decision that I wasn't going to say anything until this whole mess was over with. But the more that they beat on me, the more that the media came and attacked me and called me all sorts of names, people dug more and more into my life and dug more and more into everything that surrounded what was happening. And it actually became a huge stain on the justice system in the United States of America. And this will, I'm not certain, Tucker, if this stain can ever be cleaned. I really don't, because you're talking about the National Security Advisor of the United States of America to the President of the United States. And it's an extraordinary assault on frankly, everything that we believe in this country.
On democracy itself. Yeah. And you have to ask, and this is ultimately what made me interested in your case, is why did they single you out? So this is a brand new administration. I think the number is about 3,000 appointees or higher at the beginning of every administration for all kinds of different jobs. National Security Advisor is a top job, of course, but there are other big jobs.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't go after those guys. They went after you with real intensity from the very beginning. Now, the two things they said about you were that you were crazy and that you were dishonest.
My case and my situation is really a microcosm of what is happening in the larger enterprise of the United States of America right now. I mean, the takeover of our system of government by a few to rule the many, so to speak. They had to get rid of people like me because as the National Security Advisor, I'm responsible for everything. I mean, for pretty much everything in terms of the security system of our country, and then the principal advisor to the President of the United States. And you're a cabinet position. You're in a cabinet position appointed by the President, not necessarily. You don't have to be nominated to the Senate or any of that kind of stuff.
Right.
You don't have to go through all that. So what they had to do is they had to figure out a way to get to me and to describe me in a way that made it sound like, okay, he's just a crazy guy. All these bad things that he's done in his career. And I'm like saying to myself, wait a second. I mean, you look at my career, and it's really a pretty stellar career. I'm proud of it. Well,
if you're crazy, why did you work for Barack Obama running the Defense Intelligence Agency?
Twice Barack Obama appointed me for two different positions, 2 3-star positions, and twice I was confirmed by the Senate, fully confirmed, 100% confirmed by the Senate. So they have to look at every single aspect of your life. And what we've learned, so this is all public. So if people really wanted to dig into the case against Mike Flynn and all of the filings and all the things that have come out, even now, we still see stuff coming out now with this Sussman indictment and some of the other things that I think that Durham is actually is going to probably start to look at. I think it's fascinating. And I think what you learn is that we have 2 separate governments. We have the one that actually gets elected and goes into office. And then you have a government inside of Washington, D.C. that operates under no rules, no authorities other than their own or who's ever in charge of their
Sounds like that government was still controlled by Barack Obama.
Yeah, and I would say that to a degree is what we're operating with today. So when people talk about the deep state, and I've heard a lot of people talk about the deep state and the deep state this, the deep state that. The deep state, I don't really describe the deep state as a group of politically, of Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer or some of the people that are elected. They become part of it, but they're not really the deep state. The deep state in this country are the bureaucrats and particularly the organizations that run the security apparatus. So when Eisenhower used to talk about, and he warned us, and I think in his final speech when he was departing as the president, he warned us about the military-industrial complex, and that was back in 1960. So when Eisenhower warned us about the military-industrial complex, if you fast forward to today, 2021, you can add a component to that. And the component that I would add is the security state component to the military-industrial complex. Because the security state of this country has grown probably by 5 times in the last 25 to 30 years. So when I think about, and I'll just use, I'll use the Defense Intelligence Agency to give some people perspective. In the early 2000s, so prior to 9/11, DIA was around 3,000 people. When I took it over in only about 10, 11 years later, in 2012, I took it over, it was upwards of close to 20,000 people. So it had 17,000 employees, and then we had about another 3,000 or 4,000 contractors in various shapes and forms. So in a 10-year period of time, and it really was 9/11, probably was the impetus behind some of this, but I think what happened was over time, this security state complex really joined with this military-industrial complex that Eisenhower talked about. And the dangers now that we face is we have that security state complex are all of these intelligence community agencies and activities that we have, right, that we've heard so much about, 16, 17, whatever you want that number to be today. And then who actually is in charge of them, and then what authorities or what things that they're able to do. I mean, you know this, you've lived this by them monitoring your phone calls, right? And you talked about this only a few months ago where it was like, if they can do, I mean, they were monitoring my phone calls with no warrant. They were just monitoring them because they could. And so when we talk about the deep state, it doesn't really even take somebody from the White House to say, go do it. Although in my case, somebody from the White House did actually direct it. And it's both in terms of a Barack Obama or a Joe Biden, because they had that infamous meeting on the, I think it was the 5th of January in 2017, where Biden talked about the Logan Act, which was another one of these crazy things, you know. And I know you've talked about that in time. So this deep state complex, this security state complex, is something that the American people are now just beginning to get a taste of, staff, because they control what gets written into a bill, these bills that are 2,000 pages, right? So they not only know what these politicians are up to in their personal lives, they also are controlling what gets put into these bills.
Come on. So you're describing an autonomous government within our government.
Yeah, that's why I say there's like 2 governments. We're dealing...
But you're not overstating it. I mean, if they're controlling their own funding, then, I mean, like, they exist outside the democratic process.
Right. That's right. And I'm not overstating it. And they know exactly what I'm talking about.
So that's why they wanted to crush